This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Canine Crew, it's time to just sell the damn thing. Doberman Dan is revealing his contrarian formula for getting a rush of new customers, building your business faster, and making the highest possible profits. Go to justsellthedamnthing.com to get your copy today.
Prepare yourself for the uncensored, nothing held back, no BS reality of how business and life really work. Doberman Dan is off the chain.
Gotta give a shout out to my buddy Terry Dean. I discovered a study from him that he shared, and I found it pretty interesting. And the title of it was, "Are you working too much to make any real money?" So here's the deal. The Melbourne Institute Working Paper Series, which weird name, right? The Melbourne Institute Working Paper Series. Okay. Whatever that is, didn't do any research into them, just the research they put out. Published a study about the effect of working hours on cognitive ability. They asked 3,500 women and 3,000 men aged 40 and over to complete several cognitive tests. They found cognitive performance increased for those who were working up to and around 25 hours a week. So they come to the conclusion that doing part-time work of some type is healthy for your brain. Let me see. But they also found that as working hours exceeded 25 hours per week, there was a negative effect on cognitive functions. So fatigue and stress can damage your brain and cause a negative effect on cognitive functions. The point Terry was making is this hustle message, this hustle culture.
Grind your face off.
Yeah, grind your face off that so many people promote ain't exactly healthy, especially when you start getting a little older. I will kind of cycle my periods of work. There are times where it's intense, and then there are times when it's more coasting, and then there are times where there's none, to try to balance it out. But I feel like more mentally drained these days if I put in a lot of hours, than say when I was in my 20s. It didn't seem to affect me. Although this study is, saying that it does. Even younger people aged 40 are affected by that. Be interesting to see if they did the same study with people under 40, like between 18 and 35 or something like that. But I was curious about this because I'm in the middle of trying to restructure my work week to take Friday, Saturday, and Sundays off, and actually, condense my work down to, if possible, and most of the time, maybe 25 hours a week. And I know you've been doing the same thing. So what has been your experience?
This is really one of my favorite topics, Dan. So I'm glad that we're talking about it. I've been in strategic coach 3 complete years. I'm starting my 4th year. And in the first year, they banged into us the entrepreneurial time system. And what Dan Sullivan talks about is that you have this period of intense creativity when you're fresh. So, for instance, you take your Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. On Monday, you're going to be fresh and you're going to be incredibly creative and energetic, and you're going to do some awesome things in that time. But what happens is you start fading off and your energy starts going down, and that's where you can start doing the more operational stuff, repetitive type tasks, things like that. After that, you fall into where most entrepreneurs, and I know that these grind your face off people are deep into this, they fall into a reactive period. And if you never refresh, you're always going to be reacting. And that's why people feel like they're on a hamster wheel. They don't have energy. They're not being productive because they don't take enough time off. So the way Dan Sullivan has us combat this is by taking free days. So me personally, I work Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday is my personal free day. No family involved, nothing. That's all mine. Then I work Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday is free days with the family. And so I found that breaking it up, taking rest periods in between has worked well for me. And I recommend it to anybody, although most people, even my wife, Cupcake, gets mad at me when I tell people that I actually, and I have this documented for years now, I only work 20 hours a week.
I love it. I don't think I've ever had a breakthrough idea like sitting here in front of the computer. It's always been doing something else, doing something pretty much completely unconnected to any kind of work that I do. So taking a walk, working out, just sitting and relaxing, doing nothing, not sitting in front of the TV, just sitting and contemplating, reading, playing, doing something that's fun, playing the guitar, something like that. Like those are when the best ideas come. That they don't come where I'm sitting grinding it out. That's the antithesis of creativity for me. And it's required, I got to grind stuff out. If I'm writing copy or whatever, I got to dedicate however many hours per day to that. But that's the time for implementation on the ideas that came to you when you were away, when you weren't grinding it out, if that makes sense. Like that time away is essential. And without it, you get to a point where you can't produce.
No, that's what burnout is, really. It's like these people working in that period where they haven't replenished themselves. And this is one of the reasons I am a big, big, big advocate of being selfish. And people hate that. People get mad at me for saying it, but take care of you first. Get some rest, have some fun, because that's for me too. Like I have that Wednesday free day and I usually go do a float in one of those sensory deprivation chambers. And it doesn't matter that I'm having a free day. Usually in that hour of quiet, some idea, some answer, something comes to me because it's my brain working on the problem without me actively involved in it. It's doing the work that it should be doing. And I think people are trying to pull too much when they just need to allow themselves to remove out of the situation and let your subconscious do some work for you, because that's what it's there for.
I agree. I think a lot of entrepreneurs deal with, almost none of us were brought up to be entrepreneurs. Like the example we had from grandparents and parents was being entrepreneur. I'm going to teach you how to be an entrepreneur, and the school says, oh, you want to be an entrepreneur? We're going to support you in that, teach you that. No, quite the opposite. I mean, you're pretty much your entire programming and what you're taught is to be a robot drone for the collective. You're taught to be an employee. And so any kind of corporate gig, or in my case, civil service gig, basically the requirements are show up. That's a biggie. That's important. Show up and warm a seat for your assigned hours that week. I mean, that's pretty much it. There's probably more required in the corporate world than the civil service world, but pretty much just, you got to be there X number of hours per week, and you're just going to occupy that space and go through the motions because that's how you get paid. But, being an entrepreneur, there's not always a connection between income earned and hours worked. In fact, it can seem like totally out of place, like it can go one of two ways. The reaction usually is, holy crap, I'm working so many hours, I'm making less than the minimum wage. We work out the 80 hours a week I'm working or whatever. Or the other opposite reaction is, holy crap, I can't believe I'm making so much money just working 20 hours a week. There's no correlation between hours worked and income when you have it structured right.
Yeah, I think that's that faulty programming that we're brought up to believe that we have to put so many hours into something in order to do it. And it's not really that way. We're not programmed. I don't know why. I have to think about this a little bit. We're not programmed for results. We're programmed for, this is how much time you have to put in. And that's not the way it works, especially not when you're an entrepreneur. You can help so many more people if you're more efficient, if you're smarter about what you do, if you get leverage. But you come into this thing with bad programming and then you work yourself to death. And you don't make any money. And it's a wonder why most people fail in business.
Yeah, no doubt. You bring up a good point. So like we're trained for activity. We're not trained for productivity and results. It's just, okay, so here's your job. You're going to show up here every day at 8. You're going to stay until 5. You get a 45-minute break for lunch. And during those other times when you're not eating lunch, you're going to take these TPS reports and add a check mark in these spots and move them from that stack to the next. And it's just activity. Okay, I do this for 8 hours, I get paid. You can be so free of that as an entrepreneur. So like, we've been programmed and conditioned to be the good little worker drone that, that follows orders and doesn't rock the boat. Being an entrepreneur basically finally gives you the opportunity to be the real you, to share the real you with the world, to share your value, your abilities, your wisdom, your experience with the world and bring value to the world. And it doesn't have to conform to the old model you were taught. Show up and do activity between these hours. It can be, well, like you said, you got your work week down to 20 hours and you're making more money than ever.
It's crazy. It doesn't even make sense. And I look at it, I did a podcast episode, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, talked about my father and my father-in-law. And my father is the guy that's tied to those hours. My father, his results are based on back-breaking work. How many hours, how many shovelfuls, how many loads of mulch? What can I do to move this project forward? Meanwhile, my father-in-law is all brain work, and he's always looking at stocks and reading and making the minimal moves he needs to make, but it's all with his mind, bringing his mind to the game and not the back. And most of us, if we're brought up blue collar, like you and I were, is going to be more like, what can I carry on my back to get this result? And it doesn't have to be that way. And that's hard to deprogram yourself from that.
So how did you do it? What was the key to getting your work hours down and making more money?
I am lazy. That's part of it. But it's just like, not lazy, but it was obviously some of the training that I got at Strategic Coach helped me realize that I was wasting time in a lot of areas that I shouldn't be. And I kept a log of all my time. And that's why I can tell you that I know exactly where I spend my hours because I track every minute. Right now, you and I have been talking for 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 14 seconds. I know that because I track. But I was doing
not
admin
on this episode. Just to clarify, not on this episode. If it seems like it's going long to you, it's not that long.
We edit a lot out, but no, really tracking my time, taking an inventory, figuring out what my unique ability is, and getting rid of all the activities that didn't suit me. And so now it's like recording with you. This is an activity that's valuable. It's valuable because I get to spend time with you. It's valuable because the audience hears me and you talking, and it's valuable because I enjoy the time together. But working on the website, that's what Keith is for. So why would I ever try? And I still every once in a while slip and try to do something. But it's like, what are the activities that I'm really moving the dial on? The other part of that, Dan, is these people that talk about grinding their face off and working till no end. These people are not always working. They're just like people in an office or people hanging out at the donut shop. They think that working 80 hours, they're counting the time at the water cooler and the time at the bathroom and the time they spend looking through Facebook when they should be working. For me, I track the hours I actually produce something. And even if I'm producing a bad result, like doing admin work, I will track that. But I'm not tracking where I look at Facebook or go watch a YouTube video or go get another cup of coffee. And I think that's where people, that whole grind your face off culture falls apart, is because they're just, hey, I got up this morning and I went to sleep. That's a work day.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything in between is counted as working hours, even though they're doing nothing productive.
Right. And except counting the hours so they feel like they're doing something.
So was outsourcing a big thing for you? Did you have to outsource some things that you wanted to keep a hold of?
You know, I go back and forth. One thing, for instance, I sometimes enjoy doing ads myself, Facebook ads. And it's just fun to get that result really quickly and get fast feedback. There's people much better than me. So I got an agency doing that. And there was work that I couldn't do. For instance, we have all our clients that we do show notes for and all that sort of thing. And I can't get involved in that. Although I like to write, I can't write for all of them. But I felt like where I'm at right now, I've kept all the stuff that I'm the very best at and the stuff that I enjoy and that gives me energy. And I have people on my team who do a lot better job at editing audio. And for instance, Cupcake, she runs all the operations. I can't do all that. And so finding the right team members, putting them in their unique ability while I'm doing mine is what has been really the biggest breakthrough for us.
That makes a lot of sense. I still could get better.
Like you with the Colombiana, right? You're giving her all this data that you don't want, and yet she's thriving in it because that's her thing. And so that's how you start getting the synergies that make you super productive and give you that 3-day or 2-day or 1-day work week, whatever you're looking for.
That helps a bunch, especially like stuff you don't want to do, stuff that you're not good at, especially if it's $10 an hour work, should be farmed out. But I get it. Trust me, I get it. It's easy to say outsource this, outsource that. In the beginning, you're doing everything yourself. As Halbert told me once, he said, if you're making $3,000 a month, you got to do everything yourself, which ironically, that's about what I was making at the time when he said that. He said, you start making $30,000 a month and you're doing less. And you start making, like you're not cutting your own yard. You're not doing that kind of grunt work. You're just focusing on your core competencies and stuff that produces the results that you want. And much of it gets subcontracted out. And then he says, when you're making $300,000 a month, then you're practically doing nothing. What he meant by that is you're not doing nothing. Most of the stuff is farmed out and you are just doing your core competency. Like if that's you being the CEO and keeping a handle on the 30,000 feet from above activities and making sure that the right people are in place to keep things running, then that's your thing. Like in my instance, it would be anything related to marketing, product development, and copywriting. And pretty much anything outside of that, I really shouldn't be doing. Any operational stuff or stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you talked about it in an early episode. I don't know if it was Danielle and Danny or the 3-to-1 ROI, where you talked about the people that you're around losing their light and just basically being a shell of a person. The whole point here to enjoying what you do and having longevity and making a bigger contribution is about staying in your light, keeping that light going. What lights you up? For you, it's the marketing. It's the strategy. For me, it's the writing. So just finding those things that light you up and just staying on that path. Then you don't need to do the other stuff because it will all come together as long as you are guiding that ship and moving it forward.
Well said. And you'll be amazed at what you can find, the people you can find to do things for you on Fiverr or Upwork, often for cheap. You'd be amazed. I found an accountant one time that organized my tax records into a logical sequence, with the right categories for like crazy cheap, So even if you don't think there are things you could sub out to subcontractors, even at the beginning stages of businesses even if you're not earning a lot, I still bet there's a lot of stuff you could farm out.
Here's the thing about that, Dan, is like start where you can. And for me, it was the first thing I did was have somebody cutting my grass, which was like $25 a week. Not a big deal, but I didn't have to do that. And then eventually upgraded to a cleaning lady once every 2 weeks and once a week. And the thing to consider here is keep the things that light you up and do your best to get the other items off your plate. And you can always upgrade your team later. Just because you have a worker from Fiverr today doesn't mean that you can't hire a full-time personal assistant in the future, but it's getting in the habit of being able to get those things off your plate so you can focus on the items that light you up, the best use of your time. Your highest and best use is what we call it. Highest and best use or unique ability. Absolutely.
So you can be like me at this time right now where, the Colombiana is feeding me grapes. I have someone doing a pedicure right now and a medicure. That's right. The harp player is in the corner.
Yeah.
And if my nose gets stuffy, I have the person standing in the corner assigned to wipe my nose.
Perfect.
And yeah, I don't do anything.
You're like a veal.
It doesn't end well, though. So, interesting points. I knew you were making some recent changes in regards to that topic, so I was excited to talk to you about it.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for letting me chime in. So what do you have coming up for us next time?
Next week, I'm going to talk about why Bill Murray is my new hero.
Bill Murray. Haven't heard that name in a while. All right. Another Off the Chain show is wrapping up. I know you're sad, but the good news is we'll be back in your earbuds next time. Thanks for tuning in, K9 Crew. K9 Crew, before you run off, I want to remind you, Doberman Dan has set up an off-the-chain hotline. Call in, tell us you love us. It's even better if you tell us you hate us. It doesn't matter what you say. All you have to do is call in, leave a message. The number is 321-424-6043. Again, off-the-chain hotline, 321-424-6043.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.